Welcome, friend, to Dream Bites, a podcast where the magic of storytelling meets the power of imagination. Each episode is a warm invitation to explore a world unlike any other, carefully crafted to transport you to new realms of wonder. So, find a cozy spot, settle in, and let the friendly voice of our narrator be your guide on this exciting adventure. And now, dear listener, it's time to embark on today's delightful story.
Lotus Among Ruins. Chapter 1. Arrival at New Troy. As the shuttle pierced the hazy veil of Mars's atmosphere, Elara Croft's heart raced with anticipation and trepidation. The enigmatic colony of New Troy materialized beneath her, a scintillating jewel embedded in the cratered terrain, encased within a transparent dome. Elara's mind drifted to the events that had led her here. As a seasoned diplomatic agent of the Sol Federation, she had been tasked with a clandestine mission to infiltrate and dismantle the burgeoning Lotus trade that threatened to unravel the very fabric of the colony. The stakes were high. Failure would mean not only the collapse of New Troy, but also the loss of countless lives to the insidious addiction. Beneath the dome, towering skyscrapers clawed at the artificial sky, their glass and steel facades capturing and refracting the distant sun's golden rays. Luminescent transport tubes, pulsing with shuttles, wove between the structures like glowing arteries. At the colony's core, a colossal tower loomed over the skyline, its pinnacle adorned with the Sol Federation's rippling banner. Elara unconsciously traced the contours of the counterfeit ID chip nestled under her skin. The device proclaimed her as Lyra Thorne, a factory worker escaping Earth's overcrowded slums in pursuit of a new beginning. The carefully crafted facade would be her shield as she navigated the treacherous underbelly of New Troy. As the shuttle docked and the airlock hissed open, Elara disembarked into the bustling spaceport. The recycled air carried a metallic tang, filtering out the chaos of the arriving migrants. Elara melded into the throng, her keen eyes taking in every detail as she navigated the processing queues. Emerging into New Troy's main entry hub, the colony's utopian veneer began to crack. The plaza seethed with a mix of wide-eyed newcomers and haggard workers, determination and desperation etched into their faces. Holographic billboards flickered with advertisements for opulent penthouses and exclusive nightclubs, a jarring juxtaposition against the ragged figures huddled in shadowed alcoves. Amidst the chaos, Elara spotted signs of the Lotus trade's insidious grip. A young man slumped against a wall, his vacant stare and iridescent lips betraying his addiction. A woman in a crisp suit strode past, her trembling hands hinting at barely restrained cravings. As Elara boarded the shuttle bound for the workers' district, she watched the cityscape transform, the upper level's opulence giving way to the gritty, graffiti-marred walls of the lower districts. Somewhere within this labyrinth, the secrets of the Lotus trade awaited her discovery. Elara steeled herself for the trials ahead, the weight of her mission bearing down on her shoulders. She knew that every decision, every step, would be a battle to maintain her cover and her sense of self in a world where reality and illusion blurred. But beneath the fear and uncertainty, a resolute determination burned within her. She would unravel the truth and bring hope to the lost souls of New Troy, no matter the cost. As the shuttle descended into the heart of the colony, Elara's mission began in earnest. A lone figure adrift in the turbulent currents of a city on the brink, she embodied the indomitable spirit of humanity, ready to face the darkness and light the way to a brighter future. Chapter 2. Into the Lotus Den. The pulse of electronic music reverberated through the narrow, dimly lit corridor as Elara approached the entrance to the Lotus Den. Vibrant, iridescent graffiti adorned the metal walls, the colours dancing in rhythm with the hypnotic beat. She paused before the threshold, steeling her resolve, and stepped through the veil of sweet, intoxicating smoke. Inside, the den was a kaleidoscopic whirlwind of writhing figures and shimmering holographic displays. Patrons lounged on worn cushions, their eyes glazed and distant, lips glistening with the telltale sheen of lotus nectar. In the shadowed corners, VR pods emitted an eerie emerald glow, their occupants lost in digital realms of their own making. Elara navigated through the throng, her senses assaulted by the cacophonous music and the press of damp, feverish bodies. The air was thick with the cloying scent of lotus, mingled with the acrid tang of sweat and desperation. She spotted her contact, Ixion, holding court among a group of enraptured followers. His angular features were cast in sharp relief by the pulsating lights, his eyes gleaming with a predatory intensity. "Ah, the lovely Lyra," Ixion purred as she approached, his voice carrying a hint of danger beneath the veneer of charm. "Have you come to sample the nectar of the gods?" Elara forced a smile, adopting the eager, desperate mien of a Lotus seeker. "I've heard the whispers, Ixion. I'm ready to taste the dream." Ixion's lips curled into a serpentine grin. With a flourish, he plucked a shimmering petal from an ornate silver box and extended it towards her. "Then allow me to be your guide, my dear. Surrender to the bliss." Elara hesitated, a frisson of unease threading through her determination. She knew the risks, the insidious allure of Lotus that had ensnared so many. But to maintain her cover, to infiltrate the inner sanctum, she had to partake. With a trembling hand, she accepted the petal, placing it delicately on her tongue. The taste was saccharine, cloying, with a bitter undercurrent hinting at the poison within. As the lotus dissolved, the world began to shimmer and warp at the edges. Colours intensified, sounds became more resonant, each sensation amplified to a dizzying degree. Elara felt a euphoric lightness suffusing her limbs, a sense of boundless joy that temporarily banished the bleak reality of her surroundings. Ixion's voice seemed to echo from a great distance, a siren's call luring her deeper into the lotus haze. "Embrace the illusion, Lyra. Here you can be anyone, anything. Here the burdens of the world fade away." Elara struggled to maintain her grip on reality, to remember her purpose. But with each passing moment, the temptation of escape grew more potent, more irresistible. The squalid confines of the den melted away, replaced by a vista of breathtaking beauty, a realm where desires manifested and sorrow held no sway. As she sank further into the lotus trance, Elara could feel the boundaries of her identity blurring, the line between agent and addict becoming increasingly nebulous. In this seductive, treacherous world, she would have to walk a razor's edge, balancing duty and desire, truth and illusion. The path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, fraught with peril both external and internal. Yet even as the lotus dream tightened its grip, a small, insistent voice whispered in the depths of Elara's mind, a reminder of the lives at stake, the rot at the heart of New Troy that she had sworn to excise. In the midst of the den's intoxicating embrace, a spark of defiance kindled within her. She would not succumb, would not let the lotus win. Her mission had truly begun, and she would see it through, no matter the cost to her mind, body, or soul. With a newfound resolve, Elara surrendered to the dance, to the pulse of the music and the shimmer of illusion. She would infiltrate this world, learn its secrets, and in so doing, find a way to shatter the chains of addiction that bound New Troy. In the heart of the Lotus Den, a battle for the future had been joined, and Elara would fight to the bitter end. Chapter 3. Duality's Edge. Elara jolted awake, heart pounding, the remnants of a lotus dream clinging to her consciousness like wisps of smoke. She blinked, disoriented, as the dim contours of her shabby room in the Undercity came into focus. The air was thick with the mingled scents of sweat, desperation, and the cloying sweetness of Lotus. She staggered to the grimy sink, splashing tepid water on her face. In the cracked mirror, a stranger stared back, eyes bloodshot, skin pallid, lips stained with iridescent lotus residue. Elara the agent, steadfast and determined, had been consumed by Lyra the Lotus Eater, a wraith lost in a haze of artificial bliss. Her comm unit chimed, a jarring intrusion. Hector's voice crackled through, demanding an update. Elara slipped into her role, her words precise, belying the turmoil within. She relayed intel on Ixion's network, the new players in the Lotus trade, but her thoughts strayed to the seductive whispers of the dens, the promise of oblivion. In the neon-drenched streets of New Troy's underbelly, Elara walked a tightrope between her two selves. By day she mapped the web of the Lotus trade, charting supply routes and distribution points. But as the colony's artificial night fell, Lyra emerged, drawn to the dens like a moth to a flame. Solar, a fellow worker in the hydroponics sector, noticed the change. Concern etched her features as she confronted Elara in the dingy commons. "You're slipping away," Solar said, her voice laced with worry. "The Lotus is consuming you." Elara bristled, defensive. "I'm fine," she snapped, the lie bitter on her tongue. "I have it under control." But even as the words left her lips, she could feel the Lotus's hook sinking deeper, the siren call of false paradise growing louder. Her meetings with Ixion took on a new intensity. In the swirling kaleidoscope of the dens, he drew her close, his breath hot against her ear. "Embrace your true self," he purred, pressing a shimmering lotus petal into her palm. "Leave the pain behind." And in a moment of weakness, Elara succumbed. The lotus swept her away on a tide of euphoria, the boundaries of her identity dissolving. She was Lyra, unburdened and free. The mission, New Troy, the decay that surrounded her, all faded to insignificance. But deep within, a stubborn spark of Elara persisted. With a monumental effort, she wrenched herself from Ixion's grasp, stumbling into the neon-lit night. Shame and self-loathing cascaded over her as the lotus haze receded. She had failed, had let the drug consume her. In the eerie stillness of the Undercity, Elara confronted the duality of her existence. She was the agent, duty-bound to save her people. She was the addict, craving the oblivion of the lotus. Two halves of a fractured whole, locked in a battle for dominance. As despair threatened to engulf her, Elara clung to a single shard of hope. That somewhere within, the strength to resist and reclaim herself still endured. But that hope grew fainter with each passing day, each lotus dream more vivid than the last. In a colony on the brink of collapse, a woman stood on the knife's edge between salvation and damnation. Elara's next step would define her fate, and perhaps that of New Troy itself. The temptation of the lotus loomed, a seductive whisper in the shadows. But in the face of oblivion, a flicker of defiance ignited. For Elara, for New Troy, the battle had only just begun. Chapter 4. Shattered Illusions. Elara's eyes fluttered open, the harsh fluorescent lights of the lotus den assaulting her senses. She lay on a threadbare mattress, the sickly sweet scent of lotus clinging to her skin like a second layer of grime. Her mind struggled to surface from the depths of the drug-induced haze, fragmented memories of her mission and her identity warring for dominance. Weeks had passed since Elara had fully succumbed to the lotus, her reports to Hector growing increasingly sporadic and incoherent. Ixion's voice echoed in her mind, a seductive whisper urging her to let go, to embrace the blissful oblivion the drug offered. But even as the lotus tightened its grip, a small, stubborn part of Elara refused to surrender. She stumbled out of the den, blinking in the harsh light of New Troy's artificial day. The once vibrant colony now appeared as a ghost of its former self. The streets were empty, save for the occasional lotus-addled resident shuffling by, eyes vacant and limbs twitching. The very infrastructure seemed to be crumbling, mirroring the decay that had taken root in the hearts and minds of its inhabitants. As Elara wandered the desolate streets, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Sola, her eyes filled with a mixture of concern and determination. "Elara," she said, her voice cutting through the haze, "you need to snap out of it. The colony is falling apart, and you're the only one who can stop it." Elara stared at her friend, the words slowly penetrating the fog of her addiction. She looked around, truly seeing the extent of the devastation for the first time. The weight of her failure crashed over her like a tidal wave, and she fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Sola knelt beside her, offering a steadying hand. "It's not too late," she whispered. "You can still make this right. You're stronger than the lotus, stronger than you know." As if in response, the ground beneath them shuddered, and the dome overhead flickered ominously. The colony's life support systems, neglected and overtaxed, were failing. The price of mass escapism was coming due. In that moment, something shifted within Elara. The haze of the lotus receded, replaced by a clarifying sense of purpose. She rose to her feet, a new resolve etched into the lines of her face. She was Elara, the agent tasked with saving New Troy from itself, and she would not fail again. "I have to fix this," she said, her voice raw with determination. "I have to make this right." Sola nodded, a flicker of hope igniting in her eyes. "What's the plan?" Elara's mind raced, formulating a strategy even as the colony crumbled around them. "We start by cutting off the lotus supply," she said, "and then we rally the people. It won't be easy, but we have to try. For New Troy, for ourselves, for the future." As they set off into the heart of the colony, Elara could feel the weight of her mission settling on her shoulders. The road ahead was treacherous, the odds stacked against them. But in the face of shattered illusions and the wreckage of her own addiction, Elara had found a new truth: that hope, resilience, and the indomitable human spirit could light the way through even the darkest of times. And with that truth as her guide, Elara stepped forward to meet her destiny, ready to fight for the soul of New Troy, one Lotus broken heart at a time. Chapter 5: Redemption's Dawn. Elara moved through the deserted streets of New Troy, the flickering light of the dome casting an eerie glow. The Lotus still whispered its siren's call, but she pushed forward, determined to end its grip on the colony. Each Lotus den she passed served as a haunting reminder of her own fall from grace, fueling her resolve. The shame of her addiction burned within her, a pain she channeled into purpose. Ixion awaited her in his chamber, a king of illusions on a throne of deceit. "Have you come crawling back for another taste?" he sneered. "I've come to end this," Elara said, her voice steady. "The Lotus is destroying New Troy, and you're profiting off the suffering." Ixion laughed, cold and cruel. "The people crave the Lotus. It's a mercy, a way to forget the pain of this wretched existence." Elara drew her blade, its edge gleaming in the dim light. "They deserve their lives back, their true lives, and I'll fight for that future." The battle was swift and brutal, Elara's determination overpowering Ixion's defenses. As he fell, she felt a surge of triumph, tinged with sorrow for all that had been lost. In the streets, the people of New Troy began to stir, emerging from the dens like sleepers waking from a long nightmare. Confusion and fear mingled with a growing realization of how far they had fallen. Elara moved among them, offering comfort and guidance. She helped them dismantle the dens and destroy the Lotus supply. It was a difficult and painful process, as the colonists grappled with the physical and emotional aftermath of their addiction. But with each passing day, New Troy began to heal. The colonists worked together to repair the damaged infrastructure and rebuild their society. They leaned on each other for support, forging bonds of community that had been eroded by the Lotus. Elara was there every step of the way, a beacon of hope and resilience. She organized support groups and counseling sessions, helping the colonists process their trauma and rediscover their sense of purpose. Slowly but surely, life returned to the colony. The streets once again bustled with activity, but now it was the energy of people embracing their lives, not seeking to escape them. The dome's lights shone with a new radiance, a symbol of the unbreakable human spirit. As Elara looked out over the revitalized colony, she knew that the scars of the Lotus would never fully fade. But she also saw a future full of possibility, a future where hope and connection triumphed over despair and isolation. She had fought through the darkness of addiction and emerged on the other side, stronger and more determined than ever. And with that strength, she would continue to guide New Troy forward, into a new dawn of healing and hope. In the end, Elara's journey had been one of redemption, for herself, for the colonists, and for the very soul of New Troy. It had been a battle hard fought and hard won, but as she stood in the light of a new day, she knew it had been worth every struggle, for in the face of even the deepest darkness, the human spirit would always find a way to rise, to heal, and to hope. And that, Elara knew, was the most powerful truth of all. The end.
And there you have it, dear listener. Another enchanting journey brought to life by the magic of storytelling. We hope that this tale has sparked your imagination and left you with a sense of wonder. As we close this chapter, remember that there's always another story waiting to be discovered. So keep your sense of curiosity alive and join us again for the next episode of Dream Bites. Until then, may your own adventures be filled with the same excitement and delight as the ones we've shared here. And always remember, the power of imagination knows no bounds. Thank you for being a part of the Dream Bites story. See you next time.
Close your eyes, let your mind ignite. The universe of stories shining bright. Imagination stays create